Hi, my name is Robert Medeksza, and I'm president of Zabware, developer of the UltraHal chatbot. If I were to describe to you an entity that has many canned responses, doesn't always answer questions directly, sometimes beats around the bush when asked a tough question, or seems to answer with something unrelated to the original question, what do you think I'd be talking about?
Politicians.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I think I've discovered that chatbots have existed for millennia in the form of politicians. So let us compare chatbots to politicians. Let me pick on some current candidates running for the US presidential election. Much like how chatbots may have a database of canned responses, many politicians rehearse responses and memorize short sound bites they use to answer questions with. If they don't have a direct response to a question, they have but have a sound bite vaguely touching on the issue, they'll probably use that soundbite. Or like chatbots sometimes do, they may go off on a diatribe completely unrelated to the question. And if you call them out on it, you might get a conversation like this between an interviewer and Mitt Romney. Here the interviewer asks Mitt to talk about a misconception the public has about him, but Mitt answers with an unrelated spiel about restoring America's promise. The interviewer calls him out on it, and Mitt answers with, you get to ask the questions you want, I get to give the answers I want. And here's a very similar quote from another candidate, Rick Perry, back in October. Rick Perry answers, all right, I understand that. You get to ask the questions, and I get to answer like I want to. But anyway, based on these similarities between chatbots and politicians, I thought making a real chatbot that could answer questions like a politician would be a fun project and a new way for voters to learn about the different positions the candidates running for office have. So I'd like to introduce to you a project Zabware has been working on called Ask the Candidates 2012. Ask the Candidates 2012 is a site where chatbots take the role of each of the current candidates running for office. They're limited to only respond with the actual quote as spoken by their real-life counterpart at some point in the past. And whenever they give a response, the system cites exactly where and when the actual quote came from. The premise behind the site is that visitors can stage their own presidential debate where they can ask questions on topics important to them, and they preside and moderate over the debate. They can have all the candidates respond to the same question or direct a question at only one or a couple of them. So the site facilitates easy and direct access to the positions each candidate has had on issues important to the visitor. The technology behind the site is based on Zabware's UltraHal chatbot technology, and I'm just going to give a real brief overview of what UltraHal is. UltraHal is a learning chatbot. Its responses can be based on using traditional scripted responses with pattern matching, but whenever possible, most responses are based on a statistical analysis of past conversations. UltraHal is a massive database of past conversations, currently about 6.2 million sentences and growing, and HAL tries to use these responses when conversing with a user. But when making the Ask the Candidates site, the general mode of operation of the chatbot is the same. The normal database HAL uses was completely thrown out. Instead, to get started, I loaded all the transcripts of the presidential debates thus far into a database. So the original question the moderator asked in these debates, along with the answer each candidate gave is in this database. So now when a visitor asks a question, the UltraHal engine tries to find the most similar question in its database and answers with the corresponding answer. I released this to a limited audience a couple months ago, and the first feedback was a little disappointing. The average visitor didn't ask questions anything like what was asked at the debates. Furthermore, the normal UltraHal is a database of 6.2 million sentences where it's likely to find a good hit somewhere there, where this only had 2,600 quotes between all the candidates. So based on the conversation logs I saw coming in, I sat down and wrote additional hundreds of pattern matching rules and Googled additional quotes that could answer the questions. And based on some of the initial conversations, I tried to break down the conversational topics into categories. So I'm not sure how this corresponds to the actual issues important to American voters, but I like to think it's somewhat resembles it. So out of a sample of 14,000 sentences in these logs, the biggest category is the other category, which just means I wasn't able to pigeonhole it into some category. But after that, the top category was questions about economy, jobs, or taxes. After that was just general hellos or goodbyes to the bots. Next were questions relating to same-sex marriage or gay rights. After that was abortion or contraception-related questions, followed by immigration, education, war, drugs, guns, healthcare, and religion. So I'd like to go ahead and demo the site and maybe hit a few of these questions from these various categories. So here's the main page of the site. You can select what candidates you want to talk to here, so you can toggle them as many as you want on or off. By default, it's selected all the ones that are still haven't dropped out yet. Let's see. And over on the statistics page, you can see what candidates are talked to the most. And currently, it looks like Newt Gingrich, followed by Obama, followed by Ron Paul, Santorum, Romney, and then all the ones who have dropped out. But back on the main page, let's just start by talking to Obama here, and I'll just say hello. Okay, so you can see Obama has responded, but we can easily bring in any of the candidates at any point. So I'll bring in all the ones still running. So there's Gingrich, Ron Paul, Romney, and Santorum. Okay, so let's ask them a few questions. So one of the top categories was on the economy, so I'll just say, oops, how will you fix the economy? Okay, so here you can see all the candidates weighing in on the issue. Gingrich talks about repealing Dodd-Frank. See, Obama talks about the financial crisis. Ron Paul talks about their credit rating. Okay, I'm not going to read them all to you, but
Will they always give the same answer to the same question?
probably if you ask the same question a second time, it'll try not to use the same response, though. Okay, and so another category was same-sex marriage. So, okay. Okay, there it goes again. Okay, so here you can see the candidates' positions on this. Looks like Gingrich is against it. Obama would be okay with it. Ron Paul doesn't want the federal government involved at all. And Romney and Santorum are against it. Let's see. What about abortion? Okay, there we go. So there's all their positions on that. Oh, and another thing the system here is programmed to do is use the most recent quote that it thinks correctly answers a question. So, like, say, in the case of Mitt Romney, this quote is currently against abortion, but in the past, he was for it. But the system uses the most recent quote that it has, so kind of protects the flip-flopping to give them. Or here, like in the case of Obama on certain issues. I was only able to find quotes from him when he was a candidate from 4 more years ago, things that Obama as president doesn't talk about. For example, I noticed a lot of visitors asked about like drugs and marijuana, so I'll try that. Should we? Okay. So yeah, here we see Newt's against legalization. Ron Paul thinks the federal government shouldn't be involved. Romney wants to continue the drug war. Santorum admits to smoking pot but doesn't want you to do it. But here, Obama, you can see the answer is actually from 2004 because I couldn't find any more recent quote. So it's actually him talking about the war on drugs being a failure and about thinking about decriminalization. So the system used that quote, but there wasn't a nor quote that I could find, so that's what it responds with. Okay, I'll just do a couple more questions. Let's see. Do you like Obamacare?
What kind of questions are in the other category? Can you just show us some examples of what questions appear in the other category?
I don't know. Well, if we go to the statistics page, you could see some recent ones. I don't know if these fall into any. Education, maybe? I don't know. Or was that?
Those include just a lot of conversational type of.
Yeah, or some of them were just like, why are you stupid, or why do you hate America, or something like that. So, yeah, a lot of them were like attacking instead of asking like a question. Okay, well, that's a basic overview of the site. It's still not finished. I'm still reading the logs and adding more quotes to the database. I certainly appreciate if you guys visit the site and ask a few questions so I can analyze the logs further. I hope to market the site a little more aggressively in the coming months. So I'd like to open up to any questions at this point. Yeah. All right.
When you're parsing the quotes, do you cluster on the sentences?
What do you mean by clustering?
In terms of creating new topics and creating associations in the knowledge base?
So I have the original question that's asked, or I might reword it a few times, but it's the UltraHow engine that tries to compare sentence similarity to figure out what question was the most similar to the one that was asked.
And it does that on raw sentences, or there's some kind of pre-processing for that?
Some pre-processing to fix like typos and stuff, but other than that, it's pretty much what they type.
The like dislike button,
Oh.
is that meant to be whether or not the user
Oops.
likes the candidate answer or some kind of statement about the quality of the answer or something? For a bot, there's 2 different ways.
Right. Yeah, I just gave them that capability, and I didn't say what it's for, so it's whatever the visitor thinks it's for. So I don't currently do anything with the information, but at some point in the future, it might be interesting to look at what.